before the second straight presidential election, many polls were substantially off from the eventual vote, raising big new questions about the polling. Joining us now is Nate Silver, the founder and editor-in-chief of 538, which is a division of ABC News. And Nate, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to start with pollster Frank Luntz. He said after another election night failure that the polling profession is, quote, done. Do you agree with that sentiment?
So I'm not a pollster, but I think Frank is kind of exaggerating here a little bit for a couple of reasons. One being that we know that in a lot of states, the result is changing from what it was initially on election night. So if you were on election night, you thought, oh my gosh, Biden's going to lose Wisconsin by 10 points. Turns out he's ahead in Wisconsin now, and Wisconsin's been called or projected for him. So when you compare the final results, and it's going to take a couple of weeks in some states to the polls will probably wind up getting 48 or 49 out of the 50 states right. They'll probably come a little low on Biden's popular vote, but as more votes are counted, Biden will wind up winning the popular vote by 4 or 5 points most likely. So I think in the light of day, it's going to be a mediocre year for the polls, but one where directionally they correctly pointed toward Biden's wins in key states once all votes are counted and called.
So how was polling conducted? And did mail-in, early, and absentee voting affect the polls, you think?
That's one big question. So I want to be clear again. I don't think the polls were perfect. They clearly underestimated in some key states President Trump. One big change this year is that you have so many more ways to vote, people voting by mail. So you don't know, maybe votes can be spoiled, meaning that you fill out the ballot incorrectly when you send it in. Maybe some votes were lost. I don't think that's enough to explain all of it, but that is a new factor that pollsters are dealing with this year. So it's something we have to, the industry will have to look into and account for.
And then you've always been very careful with your forecast. You caution people. A 10% probability of something is not nothing. You're very careful there. And I take your point about the polling not being perfect this year, but not being way out of whack. But we now have had at least 2 and perhaps more elections in a row where the error was in the same direction twice in a row, underestimating the support of President Trump. Do you have any theories about what that's about?
I mean, I would contextualize a bit where it's pretty typical to have a polling error of this magnitude. I think people were spoiled a little bit by like 2008 or 2012 where polling is spot on. It's a difficult science now to reach a representative sample of Americans when their views are correlated across a variety of demographic characteristics with how they might vote. But one idea is that people who have so-called low social trust, people who may not trust the government, may also not, for example, answer polls quite as often. It's pretty hard to use weighting or other techniques to weight your way out of. So it may be that, not that Trump supporters deceive a pollster or lie about who they're supporting, but they just won't pick up the phone, and that can potentially be a problem. Again, we don't know. Pollsters thought they fixed this by doing education weighting, but I think, if you miss, you want to miss not in the same direction twice in a row, probably. So I think there are going to be a lot of questions the industry has to ask. I just think that if you use probability, you understand that, hey, look, the reason why Biden hung on in states like Michigan, Wisconsin is because he was far enough ahead where you can have a polling error and he still wins narrowly, which was not true for Hillary Clinton.
And that's why we follow 538. Nate Silver, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.